Hello, this is Dave Hearn and the Photo Geezers, along with Dick Yarmy. I'll bring Dick up here. Hey, Dick.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. And we're
Good.
broadcasting from deep within a bunker and or a cave in Western North Carolina. So, as Dick said, what were you saying? We don't want the Michigan militia to find us.
Right. We don't let them know where we are.
So this is the third episode of the Photo Geezers, and without too much more ado, we're going to go right into my Lightroom catalog. I'm going to share it up here, and we'll start talking through our images. Dick, hopefully you see my Lightroom catalog.
I do.
Just a quick statement. We're going to have a slideshow that'll be published. There'll be some 85 images in that slideshow, but we had to, in the interest of time, we had to kind of pick ones we want to talk about for certain particular reasons. And please don't be offended if you don't have an image in this little commentary section, but because there are several wonderful images that we will not be talking about today. So we're going to start off with one of Dick's images. Oops. And maybe you can comment, Dick.
Well, what I wanted to do, because I had asked people in the club to work with window light, many that had not done that before, I thought it would only be fair if I try to do something I had not done before. So Dave, if you'd click to that next picture, I think it shows the setup. If you'll notice, the window is not even in this shot. The window is to the left of the black piece of cardboard I've got up on there to give me a black background.
Sorry.
That's all right. And I just wanted to see if I could, just with the fringe of the window light, edge light something and still get, good color and detail. Go back to the pairs now, Dave.
Okay.
And as you can see, you would think the window is in the shot. But as I said, it's not. And the teaching point, I guess, I would like to get out of this in relation to, window light being our subject. The point I would like to make is you can be real flexible, innovative with the window. I do believe you could get any type of lighting you'd like to have. You'll see some examples later on. Dave has one where he takes a soft object and a hard object, and both lit with a window, and yet they look totally different. So once you master how to get the light you want out of a window, try some other things. Try to bring the window in from behind or to the side, or in this case, just the fringe of it, and see what you can get out of it. I think you'd be interested and fun.
And Dick, I want to point out that you use that black cardboard or whatever it is hanging on the wall. That was the background for the shot, right?
Right. That's the Dave Hearn, take it with you to the flower bed background. And that white piece of cardboard was actually the thing that had my bio on it at the red house. It was on foam core, so I flipped it around. And with 4 clothespins, you can make it stand up. Therefore, you can take a little piece of white foam core and you can build yourself for tiny shots like this, reflectors, and position it anywhere you want it to give the amount of fill light that you'd like. You could also crumple aluminum foil and put on the back of this thing on that card to have a harder reflector that gave you more light. So it's kind of a do-it-yourself method of light control. And speaking of light control, let's look at Natasha's picture. To me, this is an incredible example of, Dave has talked in the past about the zones of photography, the Ansel Adams, where you have 11 zones going from paper white to pitch black. And the beauty of black and white photography and the depth of it comes from how many of those tones you can capture. I would say that Natasha's got somewhere between 9 and 10. There's no paper white here, but paper white is something that really is reserved for a specular highlight or a reflection or a kick. The white you want to capture is white with detail, which she has in the wing. She has some off the side of the head. She has a little on the edge of the tail. And obviously right in front of the beak and down about 7 o'clock, you can see she goes to pitch black. And beautifully, she has every tone in between, which makes this a very well rounded and beautiful looking photograph. Just a job well done with simple window light.
Call from Wells Fargo.
Forgive my robocall in the background.
Call from Wells Fargo.
They're after you. So this is a Buzz Yoder picture, and there's several things about it that I really liked. And I'm not sure whether this was window light or done outside on a glass table. I think it might have been a table pushed up against a window. But what's fascinating about this is the way the shadows add considerably to. It's more than just a shadow. If you look at it, the shadows, the hippos, they all kind of go to a vanishing point up to the right, and so you have this
Dynamic.
huh?
It's dynamic.
It's dynamic, yes. And that's reinforced by the lines in the table underneath. So just and plus the light on it, just fantastic. So this was one of those images that immediately, at least to me, and just immediately jumped out at me and said, "Oh, I like that."
And very nice sculpturing on the figures themselves.
Right.
The light and shadow painting the sculpturing.
This is actually my image. By the way, thank you, Sidney, for making this mask for me. This is handcrafted by Sidney Wilson. But what I wanted to try to do with window light in this case was do what I would call product lighting. Lighting products, as Dick well knows, is an art form all in and of itself. Quite a bit of effort is going in to create very specific light. But in this case, I had a piece of white foam core, and I had a western-facing light or window. But I took this early in the morning, so I had rather soft diffuse light coming in, and was able to, with just a little bit of bounce back from the right side, kind of envelop this in kind of a white soft light.
And the beauty of soft light for product photography like this is the detail it brings out. You can see the grain in the fabric, and the same as the texture in the ear loops, which is what it's all about. And the interesting thing to me is with the same window, getting a totally different look on what I'd call a hard product. And how Dave has treated this antique camera. The creativity, by the way, of using the camera instruction book as a background is really, really sharp. But if you'll notice the detail in the little shutter indicator above the lens that goes TB 125/5 half and 1, you can read it all the way through, and you can actually see the machine markings on the metal. So it's a totally different lighting feel than you got from the soft goods in the cloth, but still, again, using the flexible ability of window light.
And in this particular case, in the case of the mask, the light was coming mostly in from the left, so I had it facing towards the light. In this case, the camera was turned away from the window, and I used a white card to bounce light back into it, because I had to be careful. I had the hard metal surfaces, and I could easily have gotten some real hot spots if I had faced it towards the window.
This was probably the most incredible window light shot that I saw out of 85 pictures. Dave and I both had the same feeling when we saw it. It looks like a painting. It's lost all that digital hardness that you get in a photograph, today's photographs. It's just beautiful use of the light and amazing array, palette of colors. I think Dave said looked like Vermeer to him. I'm not that well schooled in the masters. It just looked like a painting to me, a wonderful painting. But it's just beautifully handled light. And for any of the doubters that think you need $6,000 worth of camera, this is an iPhone picture. So just, and I don't think we credited it. This is Tom's.
Tom Maynard, yes.
Yeah.
And like Dick said, I think we both just, as soon as we saw this picture, we said, "Oh my goodness!" The feel and look of it, I love. It's the light is excellent. He shot it right after a rainstorm, so you obviously had some sun breaking. The overall exposure is also, you have detail outside, you have detail inside, so it's just very nicely done.
Yeah, and I think Tom ought to make a note. He shouldn't have moved because he had much nicer windows than we have here. Gee, I think they're delivering food is what my dog is doing. Okay. This just goes so much past what someone would consider a snapshot. This is just, this looks like a piece of work. This is Sam Maynard that an advertising photographer would do selling something. The combination of the art direction, the way the flush tones match the pillow, the whimsical look from her grandson, and the placement of the iPad. It's just really a great picture. I don't know what else you could say about it, but it's the kind of picture I think I said to Dave when we looked at these, gosh, if I'd shot that, I'd probably spent a whole day working on post because it's such a great basis to start with. Just a great picture. This edge-lit portrait, again, is striking. The use of contrasty light that is so difficult to handle. This is Marion Ward, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And utilizing, outlining the figure and popping him away from the background just makes for a very moving portrait. It's beautifully done, I think. David, do you have any?
No, I mean, it's, again, it's a lot of the shots we're showing they're ones that immediately jumped out both of us when we saw it. And this is obviously not necessarily a window light, but it is light like you can get on a portrait in a window.
Right, it's very directional. It's 90 degrees, and probably, I'm sure not 90, but somewhat behind. I'd say 45 degrees coming over, his right eyebrow. But it's the same look you can get out of a window light.
And the beauty of a window light for doing portraits is you can front light, you can side light, you can backlight, you can have a whole variety of looks out of one window.
Well, the other thing this shows me too is that when you have harsh light out in the day and you're taking a picture, because of the way we all grew up with the Eastman Kodak look of things, that having the sun over your shoulder would have made this a snapshot. But having the sun come at it at a different angle like this makes it a real photograph to me. So it's utilizing the light that you have to get the look that you're going to be proud of. It's just nice job.
This is Sue Genki's image. I think she calls it Our New Neighbors. But this is one of the cottages that you can see from the back of their condo. That's the little bridge that goes over the stream in between the wagon trail condos and the new cottages. But what I liked and Dick and I both liked it, is how you're led through this picture, cross that bridge and cross the way. I mean, really, the title is very telling, in that you know, you could easily see yourself walking over and having morning coffee. It's very nicely framed, lovely light. Uh, Dick, you were commenting about the I guess that's a holly or whatever, to the left, the leaves and how they're lit.
Yeah, so many times when objects are framed in our photographs, they're very dark and black and just kind of make a vignette. And because Sue has chosen to pick a point where she has the drip of light on both the gables on the cottage and the greenery in the front, it's built a much more three-dimensional frame. And it's the same up in the upper right-hand corner where you have the sun hitting the light colored tree behind the dark green tree. This picture is framed beautifully, but it's framed three-dimensionally, which I think is really nice.
And you know, again, as just about everything we talk about, and one of the reasons window light exercise is so important, light can make all the difference in a picture, and the direction of it, the shadows it casts, how it plays. So it's even though this is not a window light picture, the very same concepts that you learn playing around window light, you can take outside and use.
Most assuredly.
Go ahead, Dick.
I was just going to say this picture jumped out at me, very much like Tom Maynard's window light. This almost monochromatic use of color, combined with the compression you get by using a long lens, has made this into a graphic representation of a landscape that to me is just very striking. Just a beautiful piece of work, I think.
Yeah, this is Rock Ward, and this was taken up in Virginia, where they are presently at. I guess they are suitably distanced from everybody. If you've been to their place, they have no problem maintaining social distance. But Rock has and Marion have the distinct advantage of seeing great sunrises and sunsets right off their back deck in Virginia. Did you comment on the compression you get at that long?
I did. I think I did when I first started. The fact that it was shot with a long lens, it's turned it into a graphic image of a landscape, because the various planes, the distance between them is now diminished by using the long lens, which is just an interesting and very nice effect, I think.
For another nice effect, this is a Ernie Genki image, obviously at Tomahawk. The interesting thing here is I think anybody first looks at this image, they try to figure out what's going on, and there's a bench that he got in under the bench and shot through and underneath there. To kind of frame everything in, and the color and the dynamics of it are just really, really nice, and it's a different view of Tomahawk than you normally get. This image is submitted by Albert Spira, and for us, this is an example of where shooting the right angle really changes how you might look at it. I'm not sure where he shot this, but the particular angle, I guess about a 45 degree to the plants, creates a lot of dynamic. As Dick pointed out yesterday, it's almost like a vanishing point down to the center bottom.
Yeah, just such an unusual angle. It's playing up both the leaves and then the fluting of the tubes as they come up. It's just, I think it goes to our point we've made several times about looking at things two or three different ways rather than just quickly photographing what catches your attention at the beginning.
And we're going to talk about that at the end.
Yep.
This is a George Leroy picture of, I think it's Sweet William. Too bad we don't have Sam Maynard on the line. She could easily tell us. But this is an example where, in looking at it, I really like the picture, but all that bright light background takes your attention away. So this is one where just a little bit of post, to me, cropping in and then putting I just put a vignette on this to darken all that light area and the leaves down the right to where you bring attention to more strongly to the flower. So you have the essence of the image, and you can just make it that much stronger with just a very little bit of editing.
And interestingly enough, the vignettes creep further in than you can at first notice them. You know, it has darkened the flower as well, because it does go throughout the image, even though it starts at the edges and creeps in. You know, if you're taking it down a whole stop on the edges, you're picking up about a third of the stop toward the middle. So
yeah, I feathered the vignette quite a bit.
Yeah, really makes a huge difference.
This is a double exposure done by Sidney, and Dick and I both discussed this yesterday, and we decided that we wanted to highlight some of Sidney's double exposures. We're gonna kind of go through them, not comment a lot, but because less than half of you are on Flickr, a lot of you are not seeing these images, and I think Dick and I both recognize that the artist side of Sidney and her particular approach to art really gives her a decided advantage in putting together double exposures, and it's always interesting the intent with which that's obvious in what she does. Dick, you want to?
Yeah, it's that when you look at, and the reason we wanted to see several of them is that when you look at Sidney's double exposures, there's no way you can consider them happenstance. You know, I've dabbled in double exposures, and most of the things that I've done have been, oh, gee, that worked out nicely. It was an accident. But these are planned. It's the juxtaposition of both subject matter, size, color, exposure. These are well-planned concepts and ideas that are then executed beautifully and done with Snapseed and an iPhone. They're just, I've not seen anybody that does this kind of work at this level. Even looking on Flickr at other people's double exposures, these are just incredible, I think. But if you'll notice, they always start from, you can tell they've started from, Sidney has seen these in her mind before she put them, before she started putting them into the iPhone.
And this one's interesting because she intentionally, and if you read online, this is one where she combined double exposure and playing with window light. So on the Apple.
Okay.
So the last picture that we want to talk about, this one's by Horace Font. And Horace and I had a conversation back and forth. When he posted on Flickr, I made a comment on how much I liked it, and he and I then exchanged emails because he said this was he had not initially noticed the hairs on this. I think it was probably a flame azalea, and he obviously has cropped in about 30% of the original picture, but made a nice composition out of it. But it reminds me, and what he said reminds me of Dorothea Lange's quotation of the camera is an instrument that teaches to see without the camera. And we've all had the experience where we've taken a picture, and then when we looked at the picture, we saw something in the picture that we had not noticed at the time we snapped the shutter. And so the assignment is to, as you go around taking pictures, look at your LCD, look at the picture, see what else is in there, and then consider, if you see something else, consider reshooting the picture. Like in this case, if Horace had noticed those hairs, he might have gone ahead and walked up closer to the flame azalea and taken the picture to reveal the hair. So, Dick, you want to add any to that?
No, it's just that same concept that we've talked about quite a bit, which is to explore your subject. You know, and the way you're putting it into our assignment, we're actually almost changing the subject, which is good too. Picture within a picture. And I think it allows us to take a little more leisurely glance at what we're photographing and put it, and it kind of goes back to the double exposures that we talked about of a plan. You know, the difference between a planned photo and an accidental photo. So I think it's an excellent assignment, David. I think it'd be kind of fun.
And I think what you said earlier is, as you've often told us, that you should, when you're taking pictures, take more than one. Work the subject, look at it different angles, look it up close, look from further away.
Well, there's a joke in my business years ago that people would say the difference between a professional photographer and an amateur is a professional uses more film.
and that's because the professional, I guess, could afford to, right?
Well, and the professional, well, he's also concerned with CYA. You know, he doesn't want to say, oh, I didn't get that. When someone says, well, do you have it from another angle, or do you have it further back, or, you know.
So I'm going to stop the share of my screen now and come back to, there's the photo geezers, and we hope you enjoy this episode, and I'm going to remind you when I send out the email to continue all the way to the end to hear what the assignment is. Until 2 weeks from now or whenever.
And be sure to look at the slideshow that's posted, because as I mentioned earlier, 85 incredibly good pictures were submitted this time, and they all deserve being looked at.
And we could have had even more than the 85. So I always end up having to make a decision at some point in time that I had your eyeballs may start going crossways if you have too many pictures to look at. So everybody be safe, and talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, David.